Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Top 4 at 4. We will just get right into it. I'm Amanda Ewing, your Legislative and Political Director, and this week the top 4 topics we will talk about include the budget agreement that was reached and just introduced yesterday, and we will also talk about developments with legislation on the Reading Sufficiency Act and third grade retention, the teacher leader effectiveness evaluations, and then there is a bad bill that just got introduced and is flying through the Capitol, and we need your help on it to shut it down right here before the end of session. So I'll start us off. The budget agreement, the legislature was able to balance the budget, which we had a $611 million hole that they were able to scrape together money from places like the Rainy Day Fund, from excess money in revolving funds of various agencies, and several other places. But they came up with nearly enough money to fill that hole, and then they made up the rest of the hole by cutting many agencies' budgets. Some were cut, I believe, by as much as 7%, but the relatively good news is that common education was held harmless. That means that our budget for the upcoming fiscal year, which will start in July 1, will be the same as this past year, which goes through June. So, it definitely could have been worse with a hole that big, and so we're glad to see that it was held a standstill budget. However, every year our flexible benefit allowance, the cost of health care increases. That's a significant increase that is usually funded no matter what by the legislature, and it was not funded this year. You take that into account, and the fact that it's likely, as usual, that enrollment will rise for the next school year, and the fact that, as you well know, our schools are already strapped for cash, and it doesn't make for a good situation for the upcoming school year, unfortunately. So we will have the same budget, but it's going to be stretched even further next year. There are some quotes on the screen by State Superintendent Hoffmeister. I think she hit the nail on the head with her statement that she released yesterday. Similar to what I said, pleased that there was no cut, but that not managing a teacher raise or an education employee raise is really abysmal. As you well know, our leaders talked about this a lot throughout the interim, throughout last summer, throughout the campaigns and their elections, of course, and then even at the beginning of session. But those hopes have definitely been dashed for this year, and there will be no teacher raise. Now, you may have heard, we've briefed a little bit on it. I think we've talked about it before. There was talk of raiding the teacher retirement system, taking money out of our pension system to pay for a raise. That plan is also dead and will not happen. And certainly, while we want to raise, that's the last place the money should come from. So let me turn it over to Chanson Flick, your LPO for Western Oklahoma, and he is going to talk about the Reading Sufficiency Act. Chanson?
Thank you, Amanda. The last bill that we have going right now with RSA is Senate Bill 630, and it has certainly been moving the past couple of days. The current version of the bill will extend the third grade retention teams for 3 years. It's also going to raise the requirement for automatic promotion to a proficient score and limited knowledge and unsatisfactory scores will now both be eligible for those team decisions. Fortunately, Senate Bill 630 also allows first and second grade assessments to be used for a proficiency score and for remediation efforts, trying to go ahead and catch students earlier. The bill just passed out of the Senate General Conference Committee this morning, and now it heads for the House Conference Committee on Common Education, and it will need to pass there before it can be heard on the floor in both the House and the Senate for a final passage. So that's where we're at with that.
That's interesting. As you know, Chanson, we've talked to our legislators and expressed our frustration that while we all know the importance of reading and we know the importance of catching those students who are behind in reading early, and so there are a lot of good things in this bill. The increased remediation for first and second graders, that's great, but we've expressed our disappointment that there's no funding attached to that. This is clearly a big unfunded mandate that will be added to our schools next year with the aforementioned standstill budget. So
Absolutely.
Bittersweet, but we are thrilled that it looks as though those teams will continue making the decisions on our third graders' fate instead of a test score. All right, Ivy Riggs now, your LPO for Eastern Oklahoma, is going to talk about the TLE.
Thanks, Amanda. So there's one bill still alive that addresses the teacher evaluation, and it is Senate Bill 706. It has changed a lot since it was initially introduced. In its current form, it will delay the quantitative portion for 1 year. Initially, it was a 2-year delay, but I guess there are some complications with that with our federal waiver. And having lost it last year, our State Department did not want to risk that again. So, with those concerns, it's back to a 1-year delay. It also, a really good thing that it does is it removes the OAMs, or the other academic measures requirement for teachers that we had to do this last fall. Those were very time-consuming and hard on a lot of people. One other big thing that this bill changes from current law is that once the TLE is fully implemented with the quantitative and the qualitative, you will no longer average the scores together in a 50-50 percentage as it says in current law. You'll have two totally separate scores, a quantitative score and a qualitative score, and they're standalone scores. So, dismissals, plans of improvement, that type of thing would be made on two totally separate scores instead of an average of the two. There are some other differences in this bill from current law, but they're very detailed, and a 10-minute phone call is not enough to do that. So we will be getting you those details soon, and there's nothing to say that it won't change between now and then. So these may not be permanent. Some of these changed within the last few days even. So we will try to keep you posted. The status of this bill is it made it out of our Senate Conference Committee. It still needs to get out of the House Conference Committee and then off of both floors. So the House Conference Committee would have to happen tomorrow for this bill to stay alive.
All right, thanks for that update, Ivy. Now, finally, we've got a bill that I want to bring to your attention because we need some action on it immediately. We've started talking about this on Facebook earlier this week and have sent out text messages to those members who subscribe to our text alerts. But House Bill 2244 was just brought up. It will cap the money that public education receives from the motor vehicle tax. So right now, our school districts receive 36.2% of that motor vehicle tax every year. When this bill was introduced, it now says that at 2015 levels, so the amount that we receive from that tax this year will be the highest amount that we will ever receive in the future. Presumably, I think it's fair to say that as the cost of vehicles increases over time, then inevitably the revenue that tax retrieves will also increase over time. But despite that fact, we will no longer be getting that 36%. We will get the amount that we received in 2015. Now, next year, that tax is actually expected to decline. We're not going to bring in as much money from that tax next year, so we will, so our amount will decline too. But in following years, it's expected that it will increase, and so it is a definite cut to public education funding in the future. I've only half-heartedly, I guess, joked this session that we began the year hoping for a long-term funding plan for education, and here we are ending it with what seems to be a long-term plan of cutting education funding. So it's completely unacceptable, and we need you to contact your representative right now about this bill and say, vote no. It's already passed the Senate. That just happened, and so
it today got out of the House committee, and it is now scheduled for the floor, House floor.
the House floor. So, I mean, it could be heard by tonight. So if you know.
Can be heard tomorrow. The constitutional rules, it can't have a second reading and a third reading on the same day.
Awesome. Okay. So we do still have a little bit of time left, and we'll hopefully be able to contact and persuade enough representatives before it gets heard. It met some opposition in the Senate, and I suspect it will meet more opposition in the House, so that's really our best and only chance to kill this bill. And also, just an alert that I received while we were on the phone, please keep your eye out for House Bill 2232. It's a bill that Representative Nelson is trying to substitute some language into right here at the last minute that may increase the number of end of instruction exams that our high school students have to take. It was in a bad bill already that we worked very hard on killing earlier this week, but it sounds like now Representative Nelson is trying to do an end around and get that language put in House Bill 2232. So please stay aware. Please check our social media, Twitter and Facebook, because we will keep you up to the minute informed on that. And we will continue to do our best to play defense on these bad bills and push through the good ones before sine die, the end of session, which, by the way, rumors are that either late Friday or early Saturday, the legislature may actually come in on Saturday to do the last of their business and then end session on Saturday. That's not sure yet. The resolutions in both houses haven't been passed to guarantee that. But so they could come back next week, but right now that's what we're hearing. So that's all we've got for now. We've got also our fearless leader, President Linda Hampton, in the room. Before we sign off, Linda, do you have any words you'd like to say?
Well, I just want to thank the team for the good work on putting this call together. And then just thank everybody that's on the call, because I know that this is part of the hardest time of the school year is when you're ending it. And the fact that you're on and you're willing to call, that's just appreciated by each and every one of us here. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Thanks very much, guys. And we may talk to you next week if we are still in session, or if not, I guess this may be our last Top 4 at 4 for the legislative session. We will see how that goes. Yeah, we'll see if we sine die this week or not. So thanks very much, and talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.